Hi there. Welcome to a walk in the Carpenter shop. I want to read you a verse out of Acts chapter 5, verse 29. It says this, "But Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than men." Think about the world and the culture that we live in. How often is it that God's will gets challenged? Each and every day we face opportunities where we can make a decision to do things in such a way that other people might give us a pass on, but we know that God won't. Or it might be as simple as just downright cheating on something that you know displeases God. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but a lot of things that go on in the world and culture around us are kind of counter what God has for us. When you enter the world of politics, how often is it that we all assume that if it's a politician, they're giving us a party line and they're spinning it in their favor, but we know they're not telling the truth. And yet, we think it's all right. And we let them do that because, well, everybody does that. Just because everybody doesn't make it all right. What about cheating on a tax form? Everybody cheats on a tax form, or so the world would think. And so when you have that moment where you want to fudge on it just a little bit, no one will care, everybody understands. But it's not okay, and everybody doesn't understand, and it's not what you're supposed to do, no matter what the culture would say. In our lives, we walk a very fine balance of who we're going to obey and what rules we're going to keep. But trust me when I tell you that at the end of the day, obeying the laws of God, the guidelines of God, is much more important and much more valuable than holding on to the guidelines of a culture or of men. There were times when the disciples in that very first century had trouble navigating and doing what the law was telling them to do because they were speaking the truth of Christ. So they had a Roman government telling them to be quiet. They had a Jewish culture that wanted to kick them to the curb, and yet they kept speaking truth. Why? Because they needed to obey God more than men. You say, but the Bible also says we're supposed to obey our laws and honor our leaders. And that's exactly right. That's what Jesus was talking about. It is possible to live your faith and be obedient to God and have a stand in a culture that desperately needs to see godly people. And so by listening to God, we have the ability to walk into a culture that in some ways is godless and be able to be people of influence. So let me challenge you today to hold on to the words that those first apostles held on to. We need to obey God more than we need to worry about obeying men. You trust God, you obey Him, you follow Him, and you will cut a path through the culture that not only will inspire others, but will cause them to look at you and see something different. And you know what they're going to see when they take a look? They're going to see Jesus. And that's my hope, that people look at me and you and catch a glimpse of Him. Just something to think about. Keep obeying God. We'll talk about this thing and other things next time in the Carpenter Shop.